you have to sort of have a clear vision and strategy saying, we're doing A and we're doing A over B. Strategy is doing one thing over the other. It's not doing both. It's saying I'm going to prefer this route over the other, and this is the reasons why.
It is that convenience culture that we're now in. You just want to know it's happening and that it's easy and that it's there.
I don't think it's any specific data points, but you need to understand your business and your challenge.
Hello, and welcome to Marketing in the Madness. My name is Katie Street. I am your host for this podcast, and this feels really, really weird talking to camera on my own. It's going to get so much better, guys, I promise, when I have a fantastic guest with me. So every single week, I am interviewing some of my favourite people in the industry, really trying to pick out the brands, the people, the influencers, and the people leading marketing strategies that you can learn from to make a difference within your business. And today, I promise I am not going to let you down. My guest for today's episode is Mark Felix. Mark has had an incredible career. He has worked, pretty much every major retailer, from Carphone Warehouse to John Lewis, Sainsburys. He is currently the CMO at the AA. And today he's going to share with me everything that he knows about valuable marketing. And in fact, we went on a bit of a journey that I didn't think we were going to go on, because we ended up talking quite a lot about loyalty, and I thought we were going to talk a lot more about data. We do both. So I'm not going to talk much more because this is really awkward and I hate this to camera bit on my own. So without any further ado, let's go and meet the fantastic Mark Felix. So hi, Mark. And welcome to, I really need to remember the new title of the podcast because I keep wanting to say my old one. Welcome to Marketing in the Madness.
Thank you.
And thank you for sticking with me, because what the guys listening don't know is poor Mark and I tried to come and record before. I'm going to look at the guy in the recording room now.
Yeah.
And we couldn't record because Ryland Clark had taken our recording studio. Yep. So thank you for sticking with me.
If you're going to be bumped by anyone, you might as well be bumped by him.
The best thing was I then tagged him. I tried to take a sneaky photo of him in the recording studio and then tagged him. And then he started looking at all my stories.
Perfect.
So,
there you go. Win-win.
I'm winning in life. Ryland Clark is now, following me on the gram. So today isn't just talking about Ryland Clark. We are going to dig into everything that you know about marketing and where you've got to in your, career amazingly. What I always like to start with a guest is just to kind of give the listeners a bit of a background on you and your career and journey to date, really.
Perfect. So a bit about me. So I started my career doing management consultancy. I left university, didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I was really excited by the thought of learning about businesses and getting involved in lots of different things. And that was really great for about 3 or 4 years. And then I realised, no disrespect to anyone who's in consultancy, I wanted a real job, because I was with some clients. I was doing some stuff sort of over here, and then actually I was like, oh, that's really interesting over there. They're like, no, now you're off to go and do pricing in a completely different client. So I went to Carphone Warehouse to do strategy, which was an exciting time. They sort of were post-float 3 or 4 years and actually was bringing just a strategic lens to some of the stuff they did. I liked being in retail and consumer. I think it's very real. I think you help customers in real situations and challenges. But what I noticed was the hardest retail sector was grocery, because if you were at Carphone Warehouse, you didn't sell the Nokia phone. A new phone came out and you could sell that one instead. My logic was, if you went to groceries and if you didn't sell the bananas, they went off. And if you don't sell bananas 1 week to a customer, they don't buy double the next week. So you have a real challenge on a regular basis, not only from a trading sector, but primarily from marketing, to get that cut through with customers of why pick us when it's a crowded market. I did 8 years at Sainsburys. I did strategy and analytics. I ran all the marketing performance analytics. So actually, of all the money we spend, how do we get the best return on our marketing spend to try and bring a highly data-driven approach to it? There was a lot there already, but it was just sort of trying to push it up a level. And then really enjoyed online. I moved to become head of Sainsburys Online. From there, I moved to John Lewis to become the online director there. And again, that's an amazing company whereby you have a huge brand, huge love and trust. But from a digital perspective, you're in a very crowded market. So how do you get the cut through of saying, come to John Lewis to buy, when actually you were facing up against Amazon, Apple, Samsung, who were all building their D2C journeys, so saying, actually, don't go to the retailer, come straight to us. And that was a fantastic place to work from that perspective, and from an employee perspective. It's an employee-owned business. Your focus is on the partners. And that was really enjoyable. And then I took a slight sort of side move, which was a colleague of mine went to Money Supermarket, and I went to join him there. And it was, again, the interesting thing there was, again, very marketing-led business. You've got relatively low interest categories. People don't get excited about car insurance, home insurance, energy, but actually helping customers save money on stuff they're not really interested in, and therefore putting an extra £200 into their wallet or their pocket on an annual basis is quite an interesting pivot. And that was really exciting. And then a year ago, I joined the AA. So I'm currently Chief Commercial and Marketing Officer of the AA. We are on an exciting transformation journey, and it's an exciting place to be.
Yeah, and I really want to talk about that because, of course, you've come out with, come out of COVID, and this is what this podcast is all about. Well, the podcast isn't around COVID, but it's around marketing and the madness. And actually, we've all experienced some pretty mad times. So what the AA probably have had to deal with, I remember us, pre being on the podcast speaking about some of the challenges you've had. So I think that's going to be really interesting for us to talk about in terms of, the bits we're allowed to talk about.
That's fine.
So I want to map back to some of the things that you've just told me. I mean, first up, high five.
Thank you.
Amazing career.
Well,
the places that you've worked, and what's two things stick out to me. One is how important the psychology of marketing is, because, like you say, John Lewis, they've done a fantastic job at positioning themselves in the marketplace, not as the cheapest option, but as almost the reliable, honest, open, option that if you've got any problems, and I've experienced this, and I've happily paid more for a Dyson Hoover from John Lewis, because I know if I've got any problems, I can take it back and literally with no stress at all, they'll return it on the same day. Don't worry about fixing it, they'll just sort it. So things like that, give you that confidence. But from a marketing perspective, you've got to be able to communicate that. And two, I guess from a business perspective, you've got to understand what the business is happy to do in order to make your customers happy. So my first question is not around data and analytics, which I thought it was going to be, and I've changed my mind, but is as someone in now a very senior role in one of, probably one of the, the most heritage, biggest brands that we know in the UK, how do you differentiate the marketing and the business? Because you've got to market a good business, and because that is something that I have always struggled with when we're working with big businesses and on big digital transformation programs and other things. Like, how do you get the business to be the business it needs to be for the market, and then go to market with that?
And I think it's interesting because I'm not a classical marketeer. I didn't grow up man and boy advertising branding. I think for me the simple thing is it's how do you link the marketing to the business purpose? So you have a business purpose, which is usually commercial. And if I take John Lewis, it's an easier example. John Lewis aims to make money to ensure that its partners have a satisfying and worthwhile career. So it has a highly commercial focus. But the overlay is we will do the right thing for the customer. And you do these amazing stories, and I've seen it. Customer will come in and I want to buy a bed, and they'll sort of go towards different beds, and there's one for £3,000, one £5,000, and they'll go towards the £5,000 one, and the partner will say, no, you don't need that one, because everything you told me, this is what you need. And we see that with laptops and various stuff. You don't need the highest spec laptop for your child. You need this one, because you've told me these are these are your needs. So very clear focus on right thing for the customer, projected through the marketing. I know you said you pay more. You don't pay more at John Lewis. Usually you get free returns and. So what we're doing in the AA and Money Supermarket is saying, what are we trying to do for the customer? And how do we project that in how we talk to them and link that back to what the commercial outcomes are, i.e. have confidence that you're with the AA, because no matter what happens, fastest patrols will get you the fastest, fix 8 out of 10 cars on the roadside, and have confidence that you should be with us rather than being with our competitors or not having cover. Take that as a marketing message and then translate that into, okay, well, this is what we think it's going to mean commercially.
Yeah. So purpose and your values and what you stand for as a business absolutely has to come first, right? And do you know what? It's so frustrating. I mean, I work, as you know, more in the B2B space,
Yeah.
and I don't think B2B businesses are anywhere near the B2C businesses in terms of understanding how important it is for them to have, you know, clear values, a clear purpose, a clear reason to exist.
Yeah.
They think they can get, I don't know why. I mean, I don't know if you can tell me why you think this might be, but why they don't think that having those, I mean, I literally have sat down with CEOs of major big agencies and said, what are your values? Oh, we don't need them.
Yeah. And so at Money Supermarket, we had quite a large B2B arm. We acquired a company called Decision Technologies, which was the leader there. I think it's really important because B2B is still, I'm serving you as a client who is serving you as a customer, B2B2C. Why it's not as much focus, not one for me to answer. But I think whatever you do, you have to sort of have a clear vision and strategy saying, we're doing A and we're doing A over B. Strategy is doing one thing over the other. It's not doing both. It's saying I'm going to prefer this route over the other, and this is the reasons why, and this is how I can link it back to what I need to achieve.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I've seen coming through more and more, you know, because I've traditionally worked with maybe larger B2B tech or marketing businesses, that the bigger the bigger businesses aren't buying them if their values and their purpose doesn't align with theirs, because you've got to be seen to, you know, at least be aligned with the business that you're working with. Even like you say, B2B, B2C, you've still got to be aligned with the thinking. You've still got to get on as a team. You've still got to have some kind of common aim. And if you don't have that and you're not clear about it, and especially I think you're also thinking about, you know, how you're giving back to the world now, it's going to be harder for you to get picked by the businesses to win the work as an agency as well.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing, not necessarily post-COVID, but just businesses can scale up on a smaller footprint. Number one, they don't need an office now. Number two, there's a lot more less barriers to entry. Globalization continues to mean actually you can start to have a global footprint without less costs. The market's getting harder, without a doubt. And I think B2B and B2C, it continues to say actually you have to raise your game commercially, but as you said, also on those values, how you look after your teams, your staff, what you stand for, what you believe in is becoming increasingly important.
Yeah, can't not have it.
No.
It's not a tick box anymore.
No.
It's like whenever you're working with any supplier, I'm the same. You want to look for those commonalities because otherwise you're not necessarily going to work well together.
Exactly. No, spot on.
Yeah, it's like picking a partner. I need to get better at doing that. Right, so I want to map back to something that's obviously been a huge part of your career and is incredibly important and is always something really hard to get your head around which bits to track. So here, a big lead up. Data analytics.
Yeah.
So you've obviously had some fantastic roles where you've probably had so many different data points to look at. When you're starting on that kind of journey, I guess, where do you start? What data points should people be tracking, and which ones have you found the most effective in the different roles that you've had?
I mean, someone early on talked to me about, look, if you use data, it gets you to the answer a lot easier than thinking sort of where you're going to go. And I also believe in sort of hypothesis-based approach, which is you start with, this is what we think the answer is, you know, and therefore, what are the data points I need to validate? What are the data points I need to don't support it, and therefore do you need to change your approach? I don't think it's any specific data points, but you need to understand your business and your challenge. I'm trying to think of sort of a good example. I mean, when I ran promotions at Sainsburys, you have to say you run a promotion and you have a business aim for it, either to sell more, so you block out the competition. If you sell more toilet roll to a customer, you stop them buying it somewhere else. They don't use more, they just buy it from you rather else. Whereas if you sell something that's elastic into a product such as yogurt, they may consume more. So actually there's a different type of promotion. And then there are new products that come to the market where you have to entice the customer to say, hey, you've never thought about this product, try me, and I'm going to give you a bit of a discount because you don't know what it is. For each of those, you take different types of points of data, what they're buying before, what they're buying after, what their shift is, and you then have to craft and understand where you're going. But I think it sounds very boring. You have to know what you're trying to achieve first, base it off a hypothesis. Otherwise, you're going to just be surrounded by data points, and I think you'll go a bit mad.
Yeah, it's so hard to do though, because you've got to think about, and again, the amount of clients that I'm like, what are your KPIs?
Yeah.
What is good going to look like for you that haven't, they've got their big figure, but they haven't broken it down and looked at the data points that they need to track in order to enable them to reach that top goal, which often, let's be honest, in most businesses is going to be a financial goal.
Yeah, most businesses are a financial goal, but there's different ways to get there.
Yeah. So many different ways. So that's what I want to dig into next. Obviously, you've had a very interesting career, quite across a fair few, I guess, kind of retail sectors. This is what I really want to, this is a big question. I don't even know if you're going to be allowed to answer me, but give me the best answer that you can. What has been the best marketing initiative or campaign that you can stand by that you have been part of delivering within your career?
The one I'm probably proudest of, whereby we took a bit of insight and we made it go live, was something called Brand Match at Sainsburys. And we're all collaborative, but I had a very key partner. So I was quite young. It was 2011, 12? Gosh, I'm showing my age. So Sainsburys had a real challenge on price perception. But they were the same price as their competitors. And it was about how do you get that message through to customers in a relatively challenging environment. And we wanted to really, as they sort of, the Ron Seal says, actually I can't remember, what is it? Do what they say on the tin. It's whatever it is. Oh dear. I'm sure Ron Seal got a better mark. So
kind of.
So what we did is we said, whenever you come into Sainsburys, we will match the price of your branded shop, because brands are directly comparable to the cheapest of Tesco and Asda, including promotions. And if there's a difference, we will give you the difference in a voucher to spend the moment you check out the till. So what do they hit? It hit the customer's needs of, I want to be sure I'm not paying more for brands because they're directly comparable. I don't want fancy marketing gimmicks whereby we say we've got 100 prices lowered, etc., etc. And I want the proof. And I want it there and then. So literally, you scanned your shopping. At the checkout, they press the button. You would say, oh, no, that's £60, please. And then out of the till printer would come a voucher going, your shop was 50 pence more expensive than it would be at Tesco. Here is a voucher for 50 pence for your next shop. And that then was truly innovative. The competitors moved, the market then moved, and various other factors meant that it's not quite appropriate now. But it was truly, truly innovative. And I'd like to say, actually, I played a big part in that one.
That is amazing. I remember that because I used to shop in Sainsbury's. I mean, often shopping, I can't say that I'm the most loyal customer. I'll often go to the nearest. And, I mean, I do love Waitrose.
Yeah, we all do. It's amazing. Lovely place to shop.
It's amazing. A beautiful place to shop. But, Sainsbury's probably traditionally beforehand had been the shop that I went to the most, and certainly in my younger years, from those, well, now I know when I was going there.
Yeah.
So probably in my early 20s, that shows how old I am. That, I remember that voucher printer. And if you think about the psychology behind that, not only are you going, like you say, it's instant validation that, I've either saved, you're either not getting a voucher because you're being told actually your shop here was cheaper than everywhere else, or you're getting that voucher, which then what makes you want to go back next time because you've then got your voucher to come back and spend.
And it's all about the proof points. John Lewis has the proof points of the best partners, the best service, and that was a really key proof point. And it goes back to, you have to live what you say that you're going to do.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's so many interesting things in that campaign that build loyalty. I mean, we've worked with a lot of retail loyalty businesses, or I have, especially in my current agency now. And when you start to think about, the psychologies that make a customer more loyal, that's super interesting because I mean, gosh, there's so many things. There's so many aspects that you need to think about. Well, there we go. That's maybe my next question, because I think that is a huge, in today's world, we are, I guess, I don't know what to call it. Are we in recession? Are we officially in recession?
It's a bit tight,
Yeah,
I guess. It's a bit bumpy.
Credit crunch, recession, whatever we want
Yeah.
to call it. The current economic market is a tough one. People
Yes.
are really worried. Prices are going up. Interest rates are going up. So every brand that I speak to is thinking about, how do I keep my customers more loyal?
Yeah.
So I'd love to ask you, what's your view on, and what kind of things, I guess maybe are you doing at the AA to kind of gain loyalty and make sure that you keep the customers that you've got?
I think loyalty's hard.
So hard.
Because if you go back, you started with the grocers and their loyalty cards, and that was it. And everyone had a card, and your wallet was sort of heaving, and you had to sign up. There was a slight barrier to entry, and you sort of felt it in the club. Now it's all gone digital. Everyone has a loyalty card. The research I saw says actually the value of pure sort of earn burn loyalty is starting to go down. I think it's about the values that you have as a business and what you want. So if I take, for example, Nike, maybe I'm out of date with this, but Nike Run Club taps into the fact that some customers buy trainers because they want to go running. And actually that's a thing you can do on your own with a coach within the run club. Well, I'm out of date. They used to do guided runs from the shop. Maybe they don't. But then again, so they're playing not necessarily on price, but on you're part of us, you're part of the club, we share your values. My kids love Adidas. I buy them far too much stuff from Adidas online, and I'm part of the Adi Club. And they now tell me that I get the earliest drops. I don't actually know what a drop is, but it's like, I think it's the new product. The new stuff that my kids are definitely not getting. And that's their focus, is because you've spent far too much money with us, you get early access to buy even more stuff. That's great.
Well, hey.
But yeah, and then Strava. I read an article, people are using Strava. It's a club, and okay, you use it. You feel community, challenges, etc., etc. So I think loyalty is no longer, 1% back, 1 point for every £10 spent, etc., etc. Here's a voucher. It can be that, but I think it transcends further, going, we share your values, they're linked to our values, and let's build something around that.
Yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there. From my point of view, in fact, I feel very blessed to host this podcast, because I get to speak to amazing people like you and learn loads and loads of stuff. And actually coming through time and time and again, and I don't know which order we're launching all of the episodes in, so forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn here.
Yeah.
But community is now, I think, is the new loyalty. Like really? Community is what loyalty is becoming, because we do want to feel part of something, especially in a post-pandemic world where we were a little bit separate. That community feel, whether it's a virtual community, whether it's a club, whether it's an app or Strava or whatever it might be, I think that we gain more value from that than we do the kind of traditional club cards. I mean, gosh, you were saying about having lots of cards. I remember like having to buy like a separate thing to put all of my cards in, and thinking, oh my God, someone just needs to develop a app that has all the cards in. And then of course now Apple has Apple Wallet, and that's all there. But do I care that much about my cards and my discounts? Yes, a little bit. I want to, get my Sparks card, and sometimes, get 50p off a, lure pack or whatever. However, what would be more important to me is exactly like you say, some kind of community, whatever that might be, joining in, getting something back, getting something that is more valuable, that maybe isn't about just money, but is about community, a sense of connection, early releases, whatever it might be. That's so much more valuable as a consumer now.
And that's, from a purely commercial perspective, that's the USP for any club or society. Strava can tell you you're getting fitter, faster, quicker, better than anyone else. If you are, let's take a grocer, and you have space in your shop, how can you use that for your local community? How can you give them space, etc., etc.? How can you do free fruit, etc., etc.? I don't know much about it. Morrison's give free meals in their canteen if you're sort of having a hard time, and that I think will cut through far better than 5p off a litre of fuel, etc., etc. The challenge for the marketeers, and having been in finance for a long time, is how you take your more commercial and finance colleagues on that journey saying, we have to do this. It's hard to track. It's going to take a while. You have to trust, believe, etc., etc. And my advice is work out the data points, qualitative or quantitative, that you think help your story and that will help drive commercial benefit.
Yeah, it's really about understanding the needs of consumers today, because it has, in my opinion, vastly changed. Probably we've had one of the most seismic changes since, I don't know, World War II, because the whole world was in lockdown. So what's important to us and how we behave and how we think has, not for everyone totally, but a huge proportion of us, I would say, if not all of us, in some way have evolved our thinking and evolved what's important to us. You went back to something that made me used to shop at Tesco's, actually. So I didn't think we were going to talk so much about grocery today, but we are. Is I used to, when my daughter was younger, so again, understanding who your consumer is, what's valuable to them, I used to always go to Tesco because they gave you a free piece of fruit or something on the way in, and I was terribly unorganised and always in a rush. So the fact that I could give my daughter a banana or an orange or an apple or whatever because they had this. I think it was Tesco.
Well, I think Tesco. I think, and if you look at that from a commercial perspective, that's amazing because you will pick shop A over shop B with a child, higher spend, certain products of higher margin, etc., 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 for basically the price of an apple. Which
it's nothing.
50 pence retail, probably 30 pence cost. That's probably going to go off anyway, so they're going to chuck it away. It's not like they run out of apples because Katie's daughter's eaten them all. Far better than any £5 off here, £6 off there. And again, I'm sure they did insight that says busy parents going around shopping, kids are low on food, hunger, blood sugars going down. Let them pick an apple. No one's going to have a go.
So easy.
Brilliant.
And such a and again, how you take that to market is really hard, because unless I'd walked into Tesco's, I don't know that anyone told me that happened. It was just my experience one day. I was like, free apples for kids under 10 or whatever. I was like, yes.
And now with Facebook and everything else, you can suddenly turn that and be like, wow, you now get this. I mean, Tesco have a huge marketing campaign and they can reach everyone anyway. But suddenly, if you do these things, you can reach huge amounts of people.
Yeah, totally. I just love thinking about how these ideas came to life in a boardroom or wherever they in some kind of marketing workshop, because they are not the big ad campaigns, but the real campaigns, I feel like they are, that actually bring people into store or buy you a more loyal customer. Sure. I mean, I am a marketeer. Sales. Well, I've grown up in sales and marketing, but the most easiest person to be marketed to.
Are you?
The hardest person to be sold to.
Right.
The easiest person to be marketed to. Because any kind of good, well, as long as it's good marketing, if it's good, it will get me. And because I think about, I enjoy the psychology of how they got there.
Nice. Good.
Yeah. So my last question, well, there's going to be a couple of last questions actually, but my last big question is the AA.
Yes.
What is on your agenda in terms of your marketing priorities?
Sure.
I'd love to understand what I'm allowed to understand.
Yeah, sure. No.
Around what you're working on at the moment.
What I really love about the AA is actually we have got a huge breadth. People know us primarily for breakdown. We are known as the fourth emergency service and. But actually, we have a huge range of products and services. We not only have a fantastic home insurance, car insurance business, but we have over 2,500 garages across the country where you can get service, MOT, everything needed, and we give you a guarantee on the work done for a year or 12,000 miles, whatever it is. We have an accident management business. If you have an accident and you are a member of the AA, it sounds a bit like an advert. If you have an accident, call us first. We will take care of it for you, and we will manage it in a really simple way for no charge. It's not a thing we're doing to try and that's $19.99. It is we will look after you, and a key focus for me is actually helping people realise the breadth of what we offer, and getting that cut through that we can go so much further beyond where we are today.
It's exciting now.
It's really good.
When you position it as the fourth emergency set, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is it's probably in your marketing and I just maybe haven't noticed it enough.
It was an advert from quite a while ago.
Yeah.
It is the one that everyone talks about.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it is so clever because it kind of is. And it's the thing that we all worry about, but maybe not everyone takes out that kind. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
But it's not a cover that everyone thinks about
Yeah.
because until you've been in that situation,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily think you need it. But, we do need it.
For sure. I mean, and that's a whole different thing about risk and your attitude to risk. But ideally, you want, when you've broken down, you want, and when you're on the hard shoulder or some sort of place, you want to know that the headlights in the back, the headlights coming up behind you on the hard shoulder is an AA van.
Yeah. Not the RAC.
Everyone is great. My first thing for people is make sure you're covered.
Yes.
I would suggest they pick the AA, but I'm sure the RAC would say they should pick them as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to challenge you on why. What I would like to understand a little bit more about, though, is, I guess because we've kind of talked a little bit about the pandemic. I feel like I hate talking about the pandemic, but it is, you can't avoid it. With everything that must have happened, how did that, I mean, that must have been quite hard for you guys, right? Because people weren't traveling as much. So did you have a lot of people cancel? What's that meant in terms of...
I wasn't at the AA.
No, of course, because you've only been there a year.
I've only been there a year. I think the world changed.
Yes.
And I think motoring habits have changed, and it sort of had impacts for lots of people. If you go to the DVSA records, lots of people took their cars off the road. Was that a good thing, bad thing? That's a sort of different matter. I think I think how people travel has now changed, because actually 9 to 5 in the office isn't the same now. And actually, what does that mean for when they drive, how often? And again, this isn't necessarily about marketing, it's about consumer habits. Understanding what that means, and therefore what are your messaging content for customers is quite interesting.
Yeah, well, it's probably changed lot of your objectives.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to change. I mean, that's a whole, gosh, we could do a whole podcast episode on this, but I think we chatted about this.
No, we did.
But how the world of driving is going to change, because potentially at some point, I mean, I've been lucky enough to work with some, pretty big businesses that kind of, lead strategy and digital transformation for, some of the biggest car retailers in the world, let alone in just in the UK. But potentially the way that we all drive is going to change, that it's going to be on maybe, lots of talk around subscription models, and you get a level of car based on your subscription, or, it being all Uberized in some kind of way. So, I mean... Well,
there are people that, if you look at Volvo, they're doing some amazing stuff there. Because I looked at this for myself, just as a customer, potentially buying a Volvo car. You can get a Volvo subscription, I think, 3 months, 3, 6, 9 months minimum term. And you can change, what it said on the website, you can change the car month by month.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a long trip to Cornwall or the Lake District or somewhere, you can upgrade to a larger car. So they're doing some really interesting stuff already. This isn't necessarily about mobility or anything, but I think subscription services are really interesting. They were not very big, huge during the pandemic. People realised they didn't want their cocktails delivered on a regular basis. Yeah. Came back down as changed. But I think the mentality of, I'll buy that direct and I'll buy on a regular basis is going to continue to grow. And that's a whole different ball game.
I mean, I subscribe to everything. I literally, my friend was joking with, I know I probably do, too many subscriptions, but, I have Athletic Greens, I have Simprov, I have, so they're like, it's just advertising for all of these brands now. So Simprov's like a gut health thing. AG, Athletic Greens, is minerals, vitamins, nutrients.
Very good.
And also some of the kind of, I'm probably taking two things that shouldn't be taken together. But anyway, I am, and I seem to be fine.
You look fine.
I'm doing okay. I subscribe to Mindful Chef. I have my food deliveries, or
grocery online.
I sound ever so middle class here, don't I? Ocado. I subscribe to, I don't know, collagen supplements, like literally anything and everything. Oh, my dog food is I've tried all of them, Butternut Box, Ella & Co. My dog flea and worm treatments, literally, because I just do not, and that is I'm sure I'm in a very privileged position to be able to afford to spend money on all of these things, but regardless of salary or where you are, I know all of my girlfriends, some that are on don't don't earn the same money
Yeah,
as me
yeah, yeah.
or in slightly different positions to me. It is that convenience culture that we're now in. You just want to know it's happening and that it's easy and that it's there.
And it reduces the mental overload because you don't need to stress about, is it going to be there? They love you because you probably got a few months backed up because you're on
Yes,
holiday.
sometimes, yeah, exactly. And I do have that problem at the moment where I'm like, I need to cancel a couple.
You need to cancel.
And then you need to remember because I've got like enough collagen
yeah.
to already last me now till
you're like
I'm
105.
90.
For me, I mean, we're digressing on. This comes back to confidence. And if you look at the history of supermarkets, sorry, it's very boring, but I think part of the reason supermarkets were so successful is there was everything under one roof. And if you go back 20 years, you had to go to the butcher, baker, and then further. You said, right, everything under one roof, great quality, prices you can trust, and. Subscription for you is the same. Everything is coming through your letterbox. Your poor postman has be sort of dying there. But you don't need to worry, and you therefore have more time to go off and do fun things like Strava and presumably other stuff you do, rather than traipse around the shops buying collagen. I don't even know where you buy collagen.
I mean, neither do I. So
you don't need to.
Yeah, someone advertised it to me. I mean, I'm also like
on Instagram.
So addicted to it. I mean, that is a part of a conversation we haven't even gone into, like how our shopping behaviour has changed.
Yeah, for sure.
I am, like I said, so easily marketed to on Instagram. I haven't got enough into TikTok yet, but watch this space because with the podcast, I will be.
As long as you don't make us dance.
Yeah, no, oh my gosh. I mean, that's how it started. I remember when it was called Musical.ly, because when it started, the reason I know about it is because my daughter loved it, because all it was the miming, singing, dancing thing, and it was called Musical.ly. And I mean, she probably shouldn't have been on it, but when she was 9 or 10 or whatever, I did let her. And now it's TikTok, and it's totally different. And that's the other thing. As a marketer, we have to keep up to date. Like the world, the algorithms on the platforms are changing all the time. Like, I mean, I'm hoping some of the things that we can help with on the podcast. But yeah, it's just evolving so damn quick that we have to be aware of so much.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's some. My last question is around some practical tips. So, anything that you listen to, you watch that are, apart from this podcast, obviously, but any people that you follow, because what I'm leading on to, I'm putting you on the spot because I like to do that, is who would you want to hear from on this podcast or in general? Who do you really respect in the world of marketing that I could grill and be really mean to and ask all the questions that we all need to know?
Who I follow, I'm a bit old fashioned. I read books.
Yeah,
I do believe
that's good.
I know, but it's not sort of so I've recently read Atomic Habits, which I think is the 1%
on my reading
better
list. Yeah.
Logic is you do 1% better every day. Now I don't necessarily always follow it, but it's that logic. I'm a big fan of being organized. I'm really boring that way. I think if you are organized, you have more confidence, and there's always a book, Dave Allen, Getting Things Done, is one I sort of go back to, but it's really, really dull. Marketeers,
it's not dull, because you've learned a lot from it. And Atomic Habits is on my reading list. Yeah, well, it's actually on my Audible.
Yeah.
Because I am better at listening than I am at reading.
So I need to read, I need to write and make notes, and it's really, really boring.
Yeah.
I listen to Harvard Business Review podcast. They're dull. They're not obviously as good as yours. I listen to your podcast.
Yes, of course.
That's a hard one.
Anyone that you've worked with that's been really inspiring to you?
So a couple of people. So Lloyd Page, I work with a Money Supermarket. He's now CMO of Motorway. So Lloyd was running the marketing of John Lewis, and I was doing online. And he's a really good guy, and he really gets customers, and he really links to here's the customer pain point, and he's doing amazing stuff with. I mean, I love his adverts. My kids, they say his adverts are better than mine, and they certainly it's fine. He's really, really good. We work with The Gate, the agency. They've got some amazing people there from the strategy team as well. And I sort of call out. I work with Craig Ingalls of John Lewis as well, who was a visionary, and his sort of view of customers and what's going on there was amazing, and always sort of made me look up and go, oh yes, I hadn't thought about it that way. So those are sort of 3 different types of people that I enjoy.
Yeah, you've given me basically
Okay.
3 direct recommendations that I'm going to tap up and say, Mark said I have to have you on the podcast, and a couple of authors as well. So I'm
Couple of authors.
sorted.
Good.
5 recommendations. That's
Perfect.
five next guests. Mark, thank you so much.
Pleasure. It was really good fun.
I have really enjoyed it. And do you know what? It's really reminded me, and I hope everyone that's listening, is the importance of understanding what is important to your consumer. That's it. Take
Good.
one thing away from today. That's it.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Cheers.
So I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did. As we are a new-ish podcast, Marketing in the Madness is my newest podcast. I would absolutely love it if you head over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this podcast from and start to download and give us a follow. So that's my first little ask, please. As we are new, it will really help, and it will really help our reach, which will help me get even better, amazing, fantastic guests for you all to listen to. Also, if you really loved today's episode, and I hope you did, then please do also take a couple of minutes to just write us a little review. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, because again, that really helps me, one, attract better guests. You can tell me if you want who you'd like to hear from, and tell me what you loved about today's podcast. So I hope you have come away with some ideas and some things that have inspired you to make some changes within your marketing strategies. And I hope to see you back here again very soon.